in the rest of this lesson is go through a few examples to get us ready to be able to use inverse trig in our calculators. So the first thing to answer questions and find missing angles, the first thing we need to do is to use inverse trig ratios on the calculator. So let's have a look at these two questions here. The first one, I want to find the value of theta to the nearest degree if sine theta is equal to 0.3907. So here I have sine theta is equal to 0.3907. Now you might be wondering, we have an angle here. We've got theta. I want to find that missing angle theta. This is an angle, but I don't have a ratio. Well, if you remember, we wrote ratios as a fraction, but you can also write ratios as a decimal as well. So this number here is going to be my ratio. It's my decimal. It's a decimal form of my decimal version of my fraction. So here, what am I going to do? Well, if I want to find the angle, how do I reverse regular trigonometry? Well, if I want to find my angle, I need to just use inverse trig of my ratio. So here, I'm going to use sine inverse of my ratio, 0.3907. So if you want to find an angle, you use inverse sine on the ratio that you're given. So here, theta is equal to sine inverse of 0.3907. So let's put that in the calculator. So we're going to put shift. I'm going to press shift, sine. So I get sine inverse 0.3907. And so we end up getting 22 degrees and 19.998. They want it to the nearest degree, so to the nearest degree, I'm rounding it to the next whole number. So 22.99, if I round it, will get me to 23. So here is 23 degrees to the nearest degree. So just remember, if I'm using regular trig, I have sine an angle, and that will give me a ratio. When we use inverse trig, I put in my ratio and it gives me my angle. So if I want to undo what regular trig does, I'm going to use inverse trig. That's the main thing to notice here. Okay, next example. Use inverse trigonometry to find the value of theta, correct to two decimal places if tan theta is equal to a half. So tan theta, my angle, is equal to 1 over 2. Now here, this is more like the things we've been looking at. 1 over 2 is a fraction, and that's how we've been dealing with our trig ratios most of the times for the last while. So here, if I want to undo my trig ratio, I need to use inverse trig. Inverse to undo it, to undo my trig thing. So here, I'm going to have theta is going to equal to tan inverse. So tan inverse, and what am I going to put inside my inverse trig? I'm going to put in my ratio. So here I'm going to put 1 over 2. So let's put that in my calculator. I'm going to go, okay. I'm going to go shift tan. So if you're using inverse trig, you need to put shift before you press the trig ratio. 1 over 2. I'm going to close the bracket. And that will give me 26.56. I want it to two decimal places. 26.56. The next number is 5, so I round up. 26.57 degrees. So 26.57 degrees, and there we go. There's our answer for theta. Okay, so let's just sum up what we've done here. If I want to find an angle, what do I use? I use inverse trig. What do I put inside inverse trig? I don't put in an angle, I put in my ratio. Inverse trig takes your ratio and gives you an angle. Inverse trig, so inverse trig. So tan inverse, we have an angle or a ratio. And we get an angle. So we put in, this is our ratio, and we get out our angle. So we put in our ratio that we got, we get out our angle. Okay,